And as I thank them all for joining in, we will now be talking about what's next. What's the trend going to be like? What really is the next wave of retail, real estate, and the role of design? Some very, very important subjects that will be covered in our next session right here. And while I'll be inviting all the sessions here, the moderator will also touch upon how is it that we're going to take forward this segment. To do the same and to take forward this very interesting session, may I please request all of you to extend a very warm welcome as I present to you Mr. Muhammad Ali, Chief Executive Officer, Retail Prestige Group. Let's have a round of applause as he joins us on stage right here to not just moderate our next panel discussion, but also present to us some pointers on what is it that we can look forward to for the next wave of retail real estate. Thank you so much, sir, for your presence. And may I welcome on stage our Power Pack panelists. We have with us Mr. Ranjit Singh Bhalla, Managing Director, RSP India, Singapore. Thank you, sir, for traveling all the way. It's a delight to have you here. May I present to you Mr. Nick Karikos, Principal Director, Design. A round of applause as he joins us from Bentel from South Africa. Thank you so very much, sir, for your presence. We much appreciate it. May I present to you Mr. Kalwadia, Senior Design Principal Architect, Beast Contractor, India. Thank you so very much, sir, for your presence. A very warm welcome to Ms. Komal Datta, Divisional Director, Benoy, United Kingdom. Thank you, ma'am, for your presence right here and for adding so much value. I'd also like to welcome on stage Mr. Guido Bogilan, Partner and Design Director, SOG Design Spain. It is such a delight to have our panelists join us from all across the globe for this very, very important segment on what the next wave of retail real estate looks like. I'd like to request Mr. Ali to please begin with this segment.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Am I on? Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you. So, I'd like to begin with the obvious that we all here for knowledge, and the thing about knowledge is it only grows when you share knowledge. So that's the purpose of coming here, and every year, year after year. So that's the whole purpose of this MAPIC is we come and share and learn from each other's experiences, and these are live experiences. Like what you read and search is different thing, but when you know, we were having this discussion and there was so much that we discussed around design. And the topic is the next wave of malls that is going to happen in our country and the role of design. So I'd like to start with the word design, just to set the context. So design, ladies and gentlemen, is at the core of our being and everything around us. So if you just, I have a small presentation where there's a nature, I don't know, oh yeah, it's here. So there's nature, and if you just look around you, if you just look at the nature, there's design everywhere. The only difference is that design is designed by the Lord himself. And if you actually see the planet, the universe, a flawless design. It's so perfect. And so, I mean, you can't explain design better than the way the nature is designed. And talking about design, every great achievement or anything great that has been achieved by mankind has design at the core. You know, any achievement that man has managed to achieve has started with design. So maybe it starts with the mind and then maybe on paper, but every achievement, the core at every achievement is design. And at the same time, every failure of mankind can also be linked to design. So in design, there is a concept called design thinking. A very interesting concept because somebody might argue, I designed my product well, but it failed because of X, Y, Z. You know, some other issue. So the design thinking is an exercise. It's a methodology where you keep customer at the center and you use empathy. So you keep the customer at the center and you empathize with the customer. That is, you feel like a customer. You understand his problem. And very creatively, you find a solution for the problem through design thinking. That's what design is. And when you fail to understand the customer and its problem, then you'll not find the solution, obviously. And hence, your product will fail at some point in time. So, and design is always evolving. So what design is relevant today is not relevant tomorrow. So to discuss this subject, we have gathered an amazing panel from all over the world. And I would like to introduce the panel while the MC did introduce them. So, one sec. Yeah. So, and the reason why they are important is between them, they have designed 100 malls all around the world. That's the panel that is here with us. So we have Arunjot Singh Bhalla. He is Managing Director, RSP India. So RSP, originally from Singapore, operates in more than six countries, and they have done more than 30 malls all over the world. Then we have Komal Datta, the Divisional Director, Binoy. Binoy has been in business of designing for 75 years. And they also operate around 6-7 countries. And some of the best malls is designed by them. And RSP, I mean, the Changi airport, the jewel at Changi, where I'm sure we all have been at some point of time, was designed by RSP and Binoy together. That's an interesting part. So they both played a role in that amazing development in Changi. And then, of course, we have Nick Kariakos. So Nick is Principal Design Director of Bentel. Bentel has been in design for 60 years, based out of South Africa, done projects all around the world. And then we have Guido Bigolin, who's from SOG, and he's Partner Design Director for SOG. SOG, based out of Spain, but now operating across 3-4 countries and done some various projects, some very big projects. And then, of course, we have Carl Wadia from Hafiz Contractor. He's Senior Design Principal, Hafiz Contractor, been in business for 40 years and done more than 1,000 buildings. So we have who's who as far as the design is concerned. And we will delve and understand the design element and what role it will play in the next wave. Now, we have to understand wave. So when we talk about wave, which is what I'm saying, it's a very dangerous word because we all jump on it. Like, there's this dot-com wave, it came and everybody jumped on it and everybody were launching dot-coms. And then now there's an FMB wave, it's doing very well. Swiggy, Dunzo, Zomato, they kind of bridged that gap and created a growth, and everybody started launching FMB, investing in FMB. Now its new word is D2C. And everybody's trying to start a D2C brand because anything trending, then there's a wave. So similar thing happened as far as malls in India. So we opened the first mall in India in 2004, Inorbit opened in Bombay, and then a concept was proved and 600 malls came into being. But the disaster was that more than 400 malls have failed. They have less than 50% occupancy. So success rate of malls is about 20%. So that's the reason we have to rethink before getting into this wave. So we shouldn't make the same mistakes because a lot of value was lost in the process of building malls. It was not valuable for the developer, for the retailer, and everybody involved with it. So why is this? Why is this phenomena happening where our malls are not succeeding or trading the way it's supposed to trade? So this is how it started. It was a blue ocean. We opened, a few malls opened, and wherever these malls came, the organized malls, not the strata sold malls with department store and so on and so forth, did very well. But then it became like this. A red ocean, which is a bloodbath in red ink, and then everybody started building. And somewhere, a design element was missing. So if we have to see what the new wave should look like, I don't know, you guys can see this image, yeah. It should look like something like this. If I have to think how mall should look like, it should be something like this. So this is a Van Gogh, famous Van Gogh painting. And the reason why it should be something like this is it's timeless, it's very creative, very imaginative. People travel to see this, and it's priceless. So it is everybody who sees this, they see a part of them. in this painting. So that's how, and that's why his paintings are so expensive and so protected. So it should be something like this. And at the same time, there are a few elements very quickly before jumping into it. The new malls should stimulate the senses, all the five senses. That's how we beat online. Because online you engage only one sense, eyes. But in a mall you can touch, feel, taste, smell, so which is not possible otherwise. So we need malls which can engage all the five senses. And the next is create an immersive and shareable experience. Social media is wild. So anything which is immersive, people want to share. So that's how we build our customer profiles. Third, it should defy customer expectations. So we keep talking about malls in India, and we say, you close your eyes, you can imagine how a mall will be. If somebody says a new mall has opened, you don't need to go there. You can close eyes, you know that this will be here, that will be there, this will be the brand, cinema will be on top, hypermarket will be on the lower ground floor, these brands will be on upper ground floor, women will be on second floor. So it's so predictable. So it should defy customer expectations. And last but not the least, it should prioritize customer engagement over sales. So we have been discussing who will do how much business and place them accordingly. I think it's time for us to disrupt that and design malls where we prioritize customer engagement, create spaces where customers can engage and business will automatically follow. So these are the thought processes which as the points that we will discuss in detail. And then now we will delve with all our panelists one by one and see what they have to say. But gentlemen, before we begin, I would like to ask one question and request everybody answer in one sentence. Your individual perspective of what do you think about malls in India? We can start with Arun and then move. Just one sentence. What do you think about malls in India? They have designed malls all over the world. What do you think about malls in India?
Just the beginning. It's going to be an amazing journey unfolding in front of us in the next 5 years and 10 years. So I think it's just touching the tip of things.
Okay.
It's going to be amazing soon.
Okay. Nick?
Certainly evolving is a big, important for all malls all over the world. I think I would describe Indian malls as very dynamic, but still improving in terms of the model.
Okay. Komal?
I think we are still in a very nascent stage, still starting off, and a really exciting future.
Carl?
I hope that Indian malls can become Indian retail and the word mall can come out of it.
Okay. Interesting.
For me, it's really like a teenager, very smart, ready to go into adulthood and create something fantastic. That's what I see retail in India right now.
So if you understand what just happened, one thing, underlining concept which just came around is that in India, we're just starting to build malls. While I just said we have built 600 malls, but looks like we are at the tip of the iceberg and we have lots to cover. Because there are 6,000 malls in China, the same population. We have 600 malls, China has 6,000 malls. And South Africa has 3,000 malls. I mean, we have 600 malls in India. South Africa has 3,000 malls. And Singapore has some 140 malls?
170.
170 malls. Mumbai city has about 35 malls. Bangalore city has about 30 malls. And Singapore has 170 malls. So when it comes to retail per capita, I think we are not there. So let me start the discussion, and I'll actually start with Guido. So you have designed developments all over the world. So in terms of innovation and new age design, how do you compare the development which is happening in India with those around the world? What's your take on that?
Sure, thanks for the question. I actually love framing the retail in India with a few data that you just shared, because that's really helped us to understand the stage of retail in India that, as I mentioned, for me is still like almost a teenager. like a very early stage. There is a lot of potential, a lot of things to do. India is a country, of course, that is growing enormously, have a lot of potential, and retail is really one of the biggest part of growth, really, of the country. I will share 3 main points for me that it will not be a comparison, but it will be more like a sort of objective for retail in India, really. First point is connectivity. That is very, very important. Retail is all about connectivity. Second point, and I will elaborate in a bit. Second point is programs. Retail can be on its own, but retail works better when actually together with something else. And I will touch base on some, for me, very exciting mixed use that are happening all around the world. And the third thing, very important as well, is culture. There is not such a thing as retail that is the same, not even city by city. I think Bangalore with Mumbai, with Delhi, probably there is also some differentiation in terms of like what retail means or what is the expectation about retail. So going to the first point, I think India right now have a connectivity. India right now have a huge potential, huge potential. The country is building a huge amount of infrastructure. All these potential need to be catered, need to be taken to advantage and really creating transport-oriented development. And retail is always the hub and always the glue. I think retail is really like, I will always define the retail as a glue of the city, the glue of many different programs, really help to circulate people, help to create trading. It is really like an integral part. And all this infrastructure, all this connectivity need to be taken advantage of. Second point, programs. We think about retail as a, well, this is a little bit an old definition of a big box with a lot of program inside that is shops, right? Retail is much more than that. And of course, we have the classic mixed use that can be like residential, office, hospitality. That is a classic way of doing that. But we have been seeing retail getting together with a very special program, like sports. In Singapore, there is like, right now, the National Stadium, and they are really trying to activate the National Stadium with retail outside of the big events. Same is learning, like school, together with retail, together with tuition, together with like a cultural program. That is what actually incentivate to create what is the definition of community mall. That is really like, it's not just going there to shop, but it's going there because there is a social function and a community function as well. So I think all this is very important. Together also we differentiate also what is the actual face of the retail. Is a big box, or sometimes can be actually like something that is more open, more street, connected to a park, etc. That is also another big point. And the last part is really about cultural elements. The retail need to talk about the culture of a country, need to talk about really what people feel and they belong into a certain kind of spectrum. So I think that is basically the 3 things for me that we should really input into the retail experience in India. Thank you.
Thank you. I showed an image about that nature image. It's still there. So now my next question will be to Arun around the concept of biophilia. So when you go to Google and type a word biophilia, the first image that will come there is Changi Airport. How many people have been there? Like, have seen that green space? I mean, even if you Google it, you'll see it. I'm not talking about the artificial plastic plants that some people try to, bring into the controlled environments. I'm talking about the real live plants. Biophilia has many elements to it. And RSP has been involved in one such project of Changi Airport, which is the jewel of the biophilia as far as the developed spaces are concerned. So, Arun, my question is, biophilia, the real biophilia, do you think it works inside a built environment? Because it's supposed to be out in the nature. And how do you think it is an opportunity to engage customers in a mall?
Yeah, very interesting and very pertinent. Uh, I'll just back up to this pandemic COVID. What COVID did in the horrific sense was and is known to us. But in a positive sense brought us a very improved appreciation of nature. It brought to focus the fact that the most precious commodity available on this planet is actually our planet and nature. Now, when we look at malls, it's redefining the way you mentioned a box. A box can be a beautiful mall, but it has to be a magic box because the 4 points that you mentioned by way of experience, by way of making it something that is memorable for people. And as we go forward, the biophilic aspect will be soon becoming a given. You might have an aversion to a product that has been made which has plastic plants in it. You might say, oh, this is not real. And malls have to have the magic, have the experiences, but also have something real which people relate to and which is precious to us come in. The jewel was conceived and a lot of design teams were involved way before the pandemic occurred, but a path breaker. From a cost perspective, nearly close to $2 billion was spent. It's a hugely successful project launched in 2019. At the center of it sits this amazing green forest, if I might call it, with a waterfall that's about 40 meters. The jewel occupies about 8.5 acres. It's 5 stories above, 7 stories below. But if one was to not have that center, we would not be talking about it today. It's that important. If you did not have that center, and it was a very conscious decision, you were involved in the retail design, the retail does not open and look into the center. The center becomes a place of seclusion. But to my mind, that's the main magnet. It is what attracts people there. It's one of the most amazing concept because we are saying that the airport is not a transit center. We are saying the airport is a destination by itself. So it changes the way even an airport is looked at. It brings in a hotel component. And if you are a specialist in that field, you know what amazing numbers it is doing. The target was 50 million visitors in the first year, was exceeded by 20 or 30 million in the first year itself. So malls are becoming destination, and malls which will have biophilic components come in will have more meaning, will be more precious. Now there can be criticism that says, hey, this nature should be outside, nature should not be inside. I tell you what, nature should be everywhere. Nature should be within our being, part and parcel of the design. For me, the more meaningful projects, the more meaningful retail design projects will have real biophilia come in a most even stronger sense than what we see at the jewel. Jewel is, of course, magnificent. It's working on, but it should happen everywhere. And we should have a good integration of buildings and biophilia. Retail, of course, 100%. That's what I think.
Absolutely. While researching on biophilia, I read somewhere that biologically, there's an intrinsic ability to fall in love with nature built in us. So as human beings, even kids, even when you're very young, you will fall in love with nature whenever you see green, whenever you see fresh air, whenever you see sunlight. Biophilia has 15 elements to it. So there's an intrinsic ability to love an environment which is biophilic. It is in us. I mean, we can't escape that. So I'd like to ask a different question, Carl, talking about malls. Sorry, Nick. This question is to Nick. Yeah? Now, what's happening in US and western part of the world is a little different from what's happening in the east part of the world, where we are. So the West are repurposing malls. So malls are finding some other reasons. People are not going to malls. It's back into high street and so on and so forth. But the East is building malls like it's gold, like, you know, everybody's rushing into it. Now, while these two phenomena are occurring, is there a common driving force behind these trends? Is there some link that you can see why this is happening I mean, what is the phenomena? How would you relate them?
Thank you. I think the reality is that malls in the West, and I can only speak from a South African perspective of having seen it over 30 years now, particularly, as you mentioned, 3,000 malls in a country of 60 million people, of which the economic class that can sustain them is probably about 10 million. It's a lot of malls. For various reasons, South Africa chose to build as many malls. But at the end of the day, it's an oversaturated environment. And the new malls that are coming about have to differentiate themselves through a niche type of design and thinking. Whereas in India, India has a remarkable number of more retailers than the West, local retailers, local businesses that are looking to expand their footprint all over.
Interesting.
It makes a huge difference for an architect when we design, let's call it a vessel for the retailers to trade in and the shoppers to enjoy. It makes a huge difference to us that we can choose from so many different retailers as opposed to the ones we've seen everywhere. Zara, you can be dropped into a shopping center and you'll see the same retailers and you won't know which part of the world you're in because they're all over. India has that specialty about it. Makes it exciting, which the West doesn't have. The West has almost gotten tired. And of course, the West is looking to India, to the East, to grow their platforms, etc. So I think that's the defining factor, really. It has less to do with design, more to do with the market availability.
Interesting. So while the Western brands are coming to India, we also have our own in-house brands who are growing, and plus our culture is very diverse. So there's so much depth in the festivals that we celebrate and the way we live our lives. So we need more and more space. And also that when it comes to per capita, mall space, I think Asia is still less compared to US. And US has one of the highest per capita of retail space in the world. So I think they overbuilt at some point of time and they are going through a course correction. Now, Carl, now I would like to ask a question to you. Now, you have done more than 1,000 buildings designed and it's a very creative space, So whenever you get very creative, of course, I'm sure this would have happened at many times where you come up with a creative idea and you know this is going to be wow from a customer's point of view. But the customer on the other side says simplify. So the meaning of simplification is that cut the cost, cut the budget, can't spend so much money, and so on and so forth. So somewhere we are trying to see profitability, return on investments, which are practical things that we have to consider. So when you see on one side, you see creative ideas. The other side is your business viability. So how do you handle this, and which takes the precedence? Who wins, who loses, as an architect?
So I almost feel like you're narrating this question out of some recent experience. But I think there's a very nice tension between the client's practical business requirement and an architect's creative desire to meet that business requirement. And I think it is incumbent on us to kind of keep pushing and pressing on that tension till you understand where you hit the sweet spot for any project. So I think the day you give up on pursuing that tense moment, almost pushing the client off the cliff, but not really, is the day you'll stop doing good design. So at least I believe that when a client writes a brief for a project, it is written in with all earnestness. It is written with a certain business model in mind. It is written with, a true desire for a project to succeed. But when an architect looks at a piece of land and looks at a project brief, he or she looks at it from a slightly different lens, because it is also with that lens that we roam around in our cities. So, when we are roaming around in Mumbai or Bangalore or New York or London, you're all the time sort of looking around and trying to figure out people's habits. And you learn from that, and then you try and push that into design. So you have to push that tension till you come to the point where the client and you reach a sweet spot that this is going to work. End of the day, the business has to run, the mall has to be successful, and then only the project is going to be successful. But the only thing I can say from my point of view is that you have to explore that tension. And I want to add a little bit to what Mr. Bhalla said about biophilia. Is you mentioned in your opening talk about the six senses, how retail in its form manifestation gives it to you, but not the computer. In order to activate all those six senses, biophilia is very important, because human beings are hardwired to respond positively to nature. So if office buildings all around the world can start talking about biophilia, access to natural light, and all of those things to increase productivity, the same applies to retail, because ultimately it's a human behavior, and it's that desire to want to be in a positive frame of mind while shopping and while experiencing that will make the retail succeed. So that's my point of view.
Interesting. So you keep clients at the edge. So that's the game. So that was very interestingly said, where you don't let them jump off, but try to hold them right at the edge, so that
It's how clients test your patience. You also have to test their patience a little bit.
one of the principles of biophilia is also the risk element. So I'm doing a research on biophilia, and so architects create these spaces like the glass bridge. So they create that to create the sense of risk, sense of fear, which also is required. One of the 15 principles of biophilia is risk. Peril, risk and peril is part of the building design. So when you have that, so even in Changi, you have this train running in, and when you're seeing deep and you're seeing a big volume down. So all those are part of biophilic principles. Someday we'll do a presentation on biophilic principles alone. Now, Kumal, how many malls are you designing in India? Like projects that you're working on, how many malls you're designing right now as we speak?
At the moment, maybe 24 at least.
How many?
Maybe 24 at least.
24. So 24 malls they are designing as we speak. Yeah. Now, I want to understand. So I know that, okay, gentlemen, I have had the privilege of designing malls with all of them, except for Guido. We will do something soon, but I have had the pleasure of designing malls and building malls with all of them. So, and I always had this point, like, how do you create differentiation between projects in the same segment? Like, we have projects in Delhi, okay, we are coming up with projects, and you're already doing 3 projects in the same city. So how do you differentiate when you're designing 4 malls in one city? How do you differentiate? How do you make sure that they are not same?
That's a great question, Ali. And with Benoit's sort of experience being around for 75 years, there are loads of malls which I don't even know the number that we might have designed. So how does one differentiate and create a unique character for each development? I think it's responding to the unique parameters of each project that gives the clues. So whether it's the physical attributes of the site itself, or the cultural context, the artistic relevance, and then thirdly, the demographic. Who's the audience you're designing for? I think these would be probably the 3 ingredients that will give us the clues as to how you, create a unique character to that particular project. So if I just take all 3 and, elaborate a little bit, if I'm looking at the physical attributes of a site, looking at macro level, what's the infrastructure like? How do you arrive at the site? Is there a metro station? What's the road network like? How do you elevate that arrival experience for that particular project? So an example could be the Mumbai Terminal 2 project that we are designing right outside the international terminal. Again, that's a mix of customer types that come there. It's the transit customer who comes to the airport. It's the metro passenger who's passing through the site. It's the tourist who wants a little bit more of an immersive experience. So how do you create the volumes that will work for all different customer types? I think that dictates what the architectural form will be. Again, climate, of course you mentioned the same city, but if you're designing in different cities, Gurgaon versus Vizag versus Bangalore that we're doing for you, a project in Gurgaon and Delhi, you would look at playing with light and shade, and that would bring the character to your project. In a place like Vizag or Trivandrum, working with the tropical sort of environment, and how do you bring the lush landscape, like the project we're doing for you with biophilia, or a site in Vizag where it's, there are these beautiful mature trees on site. So the entire retail plan sort of works around preserving, and the trees are the showstoppers really, and that becomes the USP of the project. So physical attributes, I'll just quickly go into, of course, context, cultural relevance, that excites all architects. I think we love to see, is the city, is it a heritage city, is there a lot of nightlife, what is the sort of artistic, the artist base that's there who can collaborate with us on projects. So that really influences what form, what fabric, what colors we would use. And then lastly, who is the audience that you're designing for, and what is your target demographic? Is it luxury? Is it young families? Is it an anti-mall? Knowing what your segment is, do you put everything under one roof if you have the scale, or do you do a really focused kind of development? I think these sort of key ingredients define, our differentiating factors.
Interesting. So it is something like for the people, by the people, to the people, So you keep the people in mind, you keep the audience in mind, and you create something that they can, file. Arun, you also design many. Anything that you would like to add from what Komal said and the factors about differentiation? Because you, I think, are doing huge amount of work as far as malls are concerned and as far as any development is concerned. What is a few things that you want to add of differentiating between the projects so that they have a unique identity which is not same and it is still different?
So it's a fair question, and I totally agree with the points that you made. The only thing that potentially one can add is that from an experience standpoint, if we look at our diverse client groups, including yourselves, other than the facts of context, culture, so on and so forth, I think, and I'll just restrict it to India, there is a certain uniformity coming across. Now, if you go to a city, larger metros, you will really have to think hard to differentiate one project from the other, and it might be one big idea that comes in and you say, okay, this is the magic that is brought to this particular mall. Because what everyone wants to do is avoid this sameness. So in every metro, you are avoiding sameness by bringing some magic element, and I go back to that word again, which makes it different from what is happening anywhere else. And sometimes, to your point of a container, you set up as an architect a container of experiences, and you brought the soul in, which means, for example, one of the malls that we did with you, there is a large central space which is multi-purpose. It has the amphitheater experience. It has multicultural things happening. Architect just put the boundaries of it. You brought in the idea. So the differentiation many times comes from yourselves as the client, and the architect just set it up so it's flexible and it can change. Now, change is a very important word. What is pertinent today, and what are we doing in India? So, in a session that was happening just before, what was the number one mall that kept coming up?
Dubai
Mall. Now, what's happening there? If you go around Dubai Mall, it is vast. It is huge. And we're going to have huge malls coming up as well. But what is also happening is that it has got a multitude of experiences possible. So you went next year, there's something else happening. You went 5 years later, something else happening. So for the metros, my recipe would be flexibility, enabling you as a person who's running it to bring these experiences. They should change. But I want to come down to a little bit to the B cities where I think there'll be an explosion. Actually, much need not be done. I have found in some of your openings, it becomes a whole joy, the malls that have recently been done in Kerala or Hyderabad, the local dancers come in, so on and so forth comes in. Everything else is the same. It's a simple mall. It is value engineered to the cost that it should be. Don't need to overthink the malls in the B cities is what I think. But in the large cities, very competitive. We cannot do it without the partnership of the client, thinking about change, making new experiences. So I think change is the only thing that I'm adding to what you said.
Okay. So one question that I would like to ask, a common question, anybody can pick that. I was speaking about malls not doing well. I was also speaking about 60% of the malls that we build have less than 50% occupancy, and about few hundred malls are shut, literally shut. Uh, Anybody can pick this up, or multiple people can speak. Do you think design plays a role here? What is the importance of design? Like, do you think if design could have saved this or avoided this?
Dangerous question. Nobody's going to leave this stage. You know?
Anybody?
I think, let me just say that at the end of the day, design is critical. It's at the center of it, but it also needs great collaboration with the rest of the stakeholders who are involved in building a mall. The developer, the tenants, it's all about the overall offering. And any one of those can drop the ball and make for an unsuccessful center. So it needs to be a collaboration.
Hence, it is a very important factor when you designing malls. A few $1 billion are going to be spent in next 3 years in India to develop retail real estate. And yet we feel that we are underprovided. So the scope is much more. I think we need to build many, many more malls. So I think our time is up. And before we wind up, I just want one question again, one sentence from each of you. India, shopping malls, 5 years from now, what do you see? Okay, we'll start with you, Vito.
I'm really looking forward to see a lot of experience in the retail and the shopping center, a lot of different programs and a lot of different context apart from retail itself. I think that's the way to go.
Okay, Carl.
I hope we don't build any shopping malls in the next 5 years and we only build retail experiences.
Fantastic.
I think closer integration with nature and also learning from the West not to build redundant spaces, flexible spaces that can keep reinventing themselves.
Nick?
I think context will always be at the core of every mall that is designed. And I think I started off by saying that Indian malls were evolving and improving. I think in 5 years' time we'll see a true Indian model that other people will be looking at because of the additional retailers, the powerful food offering, and the entertainment component, which you don't see so much anymore in most other malls. So I think we'll find India in 5 years' time will have some malls that people will be using as a model.
Okay.
I do not see an explosion further in the metros. I definitely see medium format malls happening in B cities big time. India is a country which lives in different time zones. So if Bombay is ahead in many ways, I seriously believe that other cities would like to have similar experiences or a replica of some of the things happening in metros happening. So I predict there's going to be a smaller format or medium format malls happening in B cities big time.
So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think our time is up, so I'm getting reminded. Unless somebody wants to ask any question from them, yep, I think somebody wants to ask a question there. Can we have a mic there, please? Hey, there, bhai. We are the organizers, yeah. Can you pass the mic? Come on, yeah. Map it. Yeah. Please ask. Please name the person whom would you like to ask the question, or it's general question.
I think it's a
Introduce yourself also, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Rohan Mukhija, and we own the only mall in Bhilwara, Rajasthan. And just wanted to ask you all, in general, what does the future look like for retail in tier 3 cities of India, where the population is about 5 to 6 lakh around? If you can throw some light on that, please.
Arun just mentioned that, but anything very specifically you want to add? Tier 3 cities with 500,000 population, what is the scope for malls?
I see a number of malls happening because the tier 2 cities want it. They want to have that experience replicated, and that's what I'm predicting. You're going to see a lot of them happening. In fact, from our business model standpoint, I think we should think of the middle format malls that can come easily to the tier 2 cities. I believe in it.
Thank you.
We can build more. There's a lot of scope.
Thank you.
See, we are the most, I'm getting reminded, I can see a few more hands going up, but I don't have time. Sorry for that. But to sum up, we are the most populous country in the world, but that's half the statement. The balance half statement is we also have the youngest population in the world. So when you combine these two, we have the highest number of youth than anywhere else in the whole world, India. And we are growing. Middle class sector is growing at a rapid pace. So obviously consumption will happen. So when you imagine a youngster who's earning money, he's not going to save money. It's gone are the days. I mean, we had a generation which passed who were believing in saving, but it's not happening now. So whether it is tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they are youngsters, and then the middle income group is rising, and we have the youngest population. So I think there's a lot of scope for us to build a lot of malls, but only question is that we don't make dead malls, as we all discussed, and we have to consider the element of design. And it's a very small part of your investment, but if you go wrong in the design, like we discussed right at the beginning, if you go wrong in design thinking itself, then whatever comes later is not going to save the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you, panels, and amazing session. Thank you for your insightful, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muhammad Ali. I think the way that you've made this segment so very engaging, we're thankful to you. And I'd like to request you to present a token of appreciation to each of our panelists here. May I request for the gifts, please? A round of applause for our panelists. I do know a lot of you wanted to ask questions. I promise you, right after the next session, which will be our finale session for the day, we have the cocktail hours, a musical evening, dinner together, and we look forward to using that time to engage with each of you. So don't go anywhere. We still have one more exciting session ahead of us. And as we get together to talk more about our next session, I'm also taking this opportunity and thanking Mr. Muhammad Ali for being a part of this spectacular segment, for moderating it so very well, and to our panelists for joining us and sharing their views. So thank you so very much for your presence. Thank you. I'd also like to welcome Ms. Rima Punia to please join us on stage and give us a chance to thank Mr. Muhammad Ali with our gift hampers. All thanks to our wonderful partners. Thank you so very much. Rima, may I request you to be a part of this wonderful picture moment out here. And as we mentioned, that this session has been a lot that we had to talk about, the next wave of retail real estate and the role of design. Some very, very important facts being mentioned by all our panelists here. And of course, each one...